I actually do lots of things on campus, and I had fun coming up with the slideshow that I'm going to show you today. But if we get to the end and there is time, very cool things going on in this campus, including, you may have heard, a new School of Sustainability. How many of you have heard of the new School of... Yes! I am super excited because I really feel like food is a part of this, food and the connection with the environment. And none of that's in my slides. Another thing that's not in my slides you might want to know about later, and you're welcome to ask, I now partner with chefs in the dining halls. We now use the dining halls as living laboratories for sort of behavior-oriented studies with students and what they eat. So where we source things and how we label it and stuff like that. I am an industry shill. I took money from Beyond Meat to do a study, which I will present today. And I don't take any money, but I'm on the scientific advisory board of a group that's trying to do personalized nutrition. So I have some disclosures there, and my outline is here, a little background, and then mostly I'm going to run through 4 different studies that I've done recently that I hope you will find informative and entertaining. So let me share those. And I'll start out by telling you that the NIH thinks this is a hot topic right now. They've actually moved nutrition out of one of the councils. It's no longer in the Diabetes, Digestive, and Kidney Disease Institute. It's now in the main office of the NIH. They have this massive effort that they're calling Nutrition for Precision Health. Tons of money. There are all kinds of things to apply for. Stanford applied for several of them. Dozens and dozens of universities across the country have applied for some of this money. You can either be a clinical center and conduct some trials, or you can be a data analysis center. There's all kinds of things you could apply for. They're going to get 10,000 people to eat stuff and send in their poop and send in their blood for 2 weeks, and then they're going to do it for 6 more weeks. And I actually think it's the wrong question. I think it's the wrong way to do it. But there isn't any one right way to do it. It's going to be 7 years before they finish it, so don't hold your breath. And then they got to analyze it and publish it. And there's so many investigators. There's going to be like 100 papers that come out of this thing, 1,000 papers. Oh my gosh. But I'll just say it's a really hot topic at the NIH right now, this idea of personalized or precision nutrition, precision health. And I'm curious, you came today. I don't know what you came for. What were you thinking that you might hear? I don't know if you just want to know if you should eat more protein, carbs, or fat. That seems like a pretty simplistic idea. I bet you came for more than that. I don't know how many of you tried the keto diet. I don't know how many of you tried going low-fat vegan. I can't think of 2 more polar opposites than these 2. They're at war with one another all the time on Twitter, which I've tried to dabble in recently. I've been beat up on Twitter. Some days I have good days, some days I have bad days. I'm trying social media. I actually find some overlap in keto and low-fat vegan that I will get to later. One of my main messages in my field is that we need to stop portraying the idea that we differ so much and that it's controversial. We actually agree on a lot. I work with a group called the True Health Initiative led by David Katz, and the whole point there is to say that most health professionals in the field of nutrition agree on most things. And we portray ourselves as if we're these war tribes battling over turf, and it's really not good for the public. So I hope I can dispel some of those today. You might have come thinking, okay, so maybe my personalized nutrition is a food group type thing, and that would be an easy place to start. We know people who are lactose intolerant. That seems pretty easy. I'm lactose intolerant. I don't eat dairy. I'm not. And I do. I'm gluten intolerant, and I avoid wheat. I'm not gluten intolerant, and I enjoy wheat. But maybe some of you are here to see if the lectins are bad for you. Did anybody hear about lectins that are in beans? Oh my God, don't eat the beans because they have lectins in them. BS, don't listen to that. Okay, we're done with the lectins, okay? We could get into more detail, but only if you want to. Starchy vegetables. So that ketogenic group is kind of interesting because they actually promote vegetables, but only above ground vegetables. If you're trying a ketogenic diet, you shouldn't have a below ground vegetable because those are starchy and they provide a lot of glucose, and those might mess you up if you're trying to be in ketosis, right? So maybe you're here for that. If you are here to see if you should have raspberries and you should have blackberries, and you should have cashews and you should have walnuts. We are not going there today. No one knows that. I don't know if you signed up for any of these personalized nutrition things where they actually say stuff like that. So somebody in my research group signed up, poked their finger, drank the glop, sent in their blood, sent in their poop, and it said, you should eat blackberries. And they wrote in, they called the dietitian and said, you know, I really prefer raspberries. And the dietitian said, okay, you should have raspberries then. It's like, why did I send in my blood and my poop if you just told me to eat blackberries and now you're telling me raspberries are okay? Well, they really don't know that level of personalization. So I'm just trying to set the bar here. I'm not sure what you guys came to hear. I am going to talk about personalized nutrition and my experience dabbling in this, but think how many different levels we could be talking about here. Yeah? Does anybody want to start with a question here to prep me? You want to listen to some slides first? Okay, we'll just do slides. If you have signed up for any of these, here's some of the companies that do this. I can tell you that Arivale and Habit are already gone. They folded. They just, it was a great model. They got Habit as an example, a really entrepreneurial, fascinating guy. Got $30 million from Campbell's Soup to launch this. And then he ran out of all his money and they hadn't figured it out and it's gone. I actually think Viome has bought out Habit, but I don't think it exists anymore. And Arivale, if you go online, just isn't there anymore. Day 2 is a group out of Israel from the Weizmann Institute, and Eran Segal has fascinating data. He's really doing some great stuff with this. He's got a lot of microbiome data. They're still going. We'll see how long that lasts. This is the group that I've been working with lately. I'm on a almost weekly scientific advisory board call with them. They're in the UK, but they've got people actually from all over the globe. So they've got someone from Italy and someone from Harvard, and it's scattered about. I really like this group. They haven't figured everything out yet, but they're trying really hard. And they have an app, and you have to pay them money, and they tell you some stuff. And all our debates about every Monday morning is, you know, how much can we tell them? Because there's stuff we don't know. So how much they're paying for this? How confident are we in the things that we're saying? And when is it going too far? And it's really a fascinating debate, because we do know some things, but there's more that we don't know than that we know. So anybody willing to volunteer that they have sent in their poop and had it analyzed and sent back? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah? Was it informative? What did they tell you? Anybody want to volunteer? Did they tell you you should eat raspberries, not blackberries? No? Okay, it's fascinating that these companies are here. Another one is called Viome. I don't know if you're all going to rush out to the bathroom right now to swab your poop and send it in after, well, we'll see what happens. I think you should stay for the whole talk first. These guys, you might be part of a class action suit for fraud. So this one has not gone very well. The Theranos of the microbiome right here. Okay, so again, setting the tone. Why did you come here to learn about personalized nutrition? It could be lots of these different things. There's lots of investment going into this. The NIH is interested in this. This is a serious interest, but how far have we come and how far do we have to go? So I have dabbled in this in a number of ways, and the first one I'll tell you about is probably the biggest project that I've worked on in my career so far. I ran an $8 million NIH-funded, randomized controlled weight loss study where I was trying to see if there was some level of personalization to choosing a low-carb versus a low-fat study. This grant was rejected 4 times. I finally got it funded. It took 5 years to run it. It took 2 years to publish it. When it finally got published, I realized it was 10 years from the day that I had written the first grant. And we didn't really find that much, and you'll see. And so it's kind of awakening that it took me 10 years to not really even move the needle on this. So this is the name of our trial, published in JAMA in 2018. I hope you will appreciate the acronym. We spent a lot of time working on this acronym. It's on the left. I've actually got a lot of love for the acronym so far, so that was a huge win from this study, was how hard we worked on the acronym. The basis for this was there's some really interesting data on people being more insulin resistant and more insulin sensitive as maybe predisposing you to a low carb or low fat diet. And I had done another study that we called the A2Z study, that was Atkins, Ornish zone, and a traditional health professionals approach. And we hadn't found any difference in those the three very popular diets versus a health professionals diet. We saw a lot of variability within them, within each group. And an outside group came and asked for some of my genotype data, and they came up with a genotype hypothesis that there was a genetic predisposition to losing weight. And so we got a lot of money, and we had 600 people sign up for a year to do this study. And at the base, it was a low-carb versus a low-fat study. I was very intent on making this the best low-fat diet that we could and the best low-carb, because when we signed people up, we really didn't want to say, we really like this one, sorry, you got the crappy diet. We wanted the dietitians who were teaching this to the participants to feel really good. Oh my gosh, I'm part of an NIH study at Stanford. I get 300 people to work with. I'm going to have them do the best low-carb and the best low-fat diet that I can. That was pretty fun. Very, very importantly, though, we weren't looking for an overall low-carb, low-fat difference. What I really was expecting was that we would see this massive variability in response to the same advice in both groups. And that what we were after was, how can we explain that variability? Are there predisposing factors, which I think gets to personalized nutrition? And so the way we speak of this scientifically is there effect modification? So we've got an effect, we've lost some weight, but are there some pre-identifying factors that would help explain that will help people? When we tell them they have those, then they'll be more likely to choose one diet over another if it works, okay? I think that's precision nutrition. So here is a graph that many, many people have asked me for. It actually didn't make it into the main article. I had a little bar graph, but people love this, what I call waterfall plot. So this is every participant in the study and their 12-month response to weight loss. It's in kilos, if you can see that on the left. And so in both groups, some people lost 30 kilos, 25, 30 kilos. They were pretty happy. Look on the right side. Some people gained 5 or 10 kilos in a weight loss study, and bless their heart, they came back at the end of the study to get measured. Dr. Gardner, I was in your weight loss study. I gained 20 pounds. Please weigh me and publish the results, right? Maybe they wouldn't have come back. No, actually had pretty good retention in this study. But this is just what we were after. We were after reproducing this massive variability in response to the same instruction, and could we help people understand what was predisposing them maybe to be more successful or less. So overall, we were taking advantage of this 85-pound range of response to the same advice. In fact, all the dietitians, there were 5 of them because there's a lot of people in the study, all the dietitians in 5 different cohorts of individuals would always teach a low-fat and a low-carb class, low-fat and a low-carb. So it's the same, if one dietitian was more enthusiastic or motivating than the other, they were teaching both diets. So we took a lot of time to make these as equal as possible, and here was our hypothesis that if we did an oral glucose tolerance test on you, which is pretty icky, and maybe some of you have done this, maybe some of you when you were pregnant, in an oral glucose tolerance test, you have to come in fasted, drink 75 grams of glucose. Okay, it's not like soda. Soda is glucose and fructose is sweet. Glucose is gross. Have you ever dipped your finger in corn syrup when you were baking and sucked on it? It's like cloyingly, disgustingly sweet. That's what you have to drink, 75 grams of glucose on an empty stomach, which means the blood sugar just rises right away as this all gets absorbed super rapidly. And we tracked insulin, and some people's insulin went through the roof in response to that, and some actually totally handled it. And so what we used is a factor called insulin 30 minutes after this challenge. If your insulin was through the roof, you were probably insulin resistant. And if your insulin was lower, you're probably insulin sensitive and did a good job handling glucose. We thought this is a predisposing factor so that if you were insulin resistant, we thought you should be on low carb. And if you were insulin sensitive, we thought low fat would be fine, and that we would see this range of differential response. Drum roll, please. Nothing. Oh, God, 10 years of work. freaking nothing. Oh, across the different sort of, for ease of presentation, I'm just making this tertiles or thirds of high, low, medium insulin. Yeah, there's no difference in weight loss across these different levels of insulin 30. Okay, so then we had the genotype thing. We got 2 chances to do this. We had a low-fat genotype and a low-carb genotype. And so you either got matched or mismatched to the right or the wrong diet. Drum roll, please. Oop, there you go. Oh, timing's off, sorry. Nothing. The genotype thing totally failed. Oh my God, I spent so much time on this. The genotype thing was a little funny. I don't know if you've heard the term single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs is what we call them. So this particular genotype pattern was based on a combination of 3 SNPs. Could have done 1 SNP, could have done 2. There's actually about 50 that are related to weight. So a postdoc at the time as we published this said, so Professor Gardner, let me get this right. There's 50 different SNPs. You picked 3 in a certain combination based on some advice that somebody gave me from some pilot data. This one didn't work, so how many more genetic predisposition options do we have? Is it 999,999? I said, yeah, about that. He said, okay, so glad we got that one out of the way. Now we can go on to the next one. Yeah, a 10-year study for every one of those. Okay, so it didn't work. So we concluded that our 2 hypotheses, that there would be an insulin resistance predisposition and a genetic predisposition, failed. Well, we spent a lot of money, so we got other postdocs doing stuff. We looked for maybe there's a microbiome difference, a gender difference, proteomic profile difference, maybe there's a psychological profile difference, and the papers are getting published, and there's some really minor difference, but there's nothing to jump up and down about that, oh my God, we have been able to predict this variability that we're seeing. And it's still there. The variability didn't go away. I still have 85 pounds of this range of variability to the same advice. It seems like we should be able to help people, but we haven't. So this is one of my first forays into the idea of personalized nutrition, and it failed. It did get us an entire full-page coverage in the New York Times back in 2018. Anna Had O'Connor. I'm not sure why he's burning up the nutrition fact panel. I really had nothing to do with the nutrition fact panel. I guess that was for clickbait. Interestingly, he interviewed me and said, so your study failed, huh? And I said, well, yeah, that part didn't work, but a lot of people lost weight. And one of the interesting twists in interpretation to this study, because we had seen other studies in the past with this insulin resistance idea, was that we didn't replicate that because I put so much effort into making it a healthy low carb and a healthy low fat. And that some of the other studies had been somebody who favored low fat or favored low carb, and they made their diet better than the other one they were contrasting it to. And that by making them equally healthy, we had found that that was more important than low carb or low fat. Well, interestingly, that's what he led with in this title, which is not what we studied. That was not the hypothesis. So it's kind of fun to be in the New York Times, except Anna, you got that wrong. Maybe the key to weight loss is diet quality, but we didn't randomize people to crap versus quality. We randomized them to low carb versus low fat, and we looked at predisposing factors. So I didn't feel too bad about the headline. Okay, they got it wrong, and we're encouraging everyone to eat a good quality diet. There's really probably not much harm in that. But it isn't right. That's not what we studied. Okay, so let me give you another one. I have these fabulous new colleagues, Justin and Erica Sonnenberg, that are helping me with microbiome and poop. That's why I'm bringing this up. And a great postdoc who helped us with a fake meat study. So I don't know if you've seen these full-page New York Times ads from a front company for the Cattlemen's Association. I think it's the Consumer Freedom Choice Group, something like that. And it says, here's the ingredients in fake meat, and here's the ingredients in dog food. You see if you can see the difference. There is a difference, but they sure are slamming fake meat. And so we got lots of stuff going on about beef and environmental issues. We got greenhouse gases, water use, biodiversity, land use. But health, they're saying, oh, I think we got them on health. So they're putting sodium in these fake meat products. They're putting saturated fat in the form of coconut fat in there. They're probably bad for your health. It's ultra-processed food. So there was a lot of slamming and trash talk about how bad they were. And I thought, I know how to do that. I could study that. And I took money from Beyond Meat, so keep that in mind as I say this. And we randomized people to eat fake meat versus red meat to see what the health impacts would be. I know how to do that. And again, hope you appreciate our acronym here. We spent a lot of time in the acronym. I may not be saving America's health, but I'm having fun with acronyms, okay? So it turns out, mechanistically, there's a guy at the Cleveland Clinic named Stan Hazen who has identified what he considers an emerging risk factor from heart disease. And at one point he wrote an article and he said, I'm not sure it's the saturated fat in meat that's been the problem all this time. He thinks it might be something called trimethylamine oxide. And what happens is red meat tends to have choline and carnitine in it as molecules. And it turns out if this gets to your gut and the microbiome in your gut, it gets converted to trimethylamine, and then if that travels in your blood to the liver, it gets turned into trimethylamine oxide. And this is considered an inflammatory marker and a blood clotting factor, and he's done a lot of interesting work. I'm very engaged with the American Heart Association, and quite often they have a whole session now on TMAO and what people have found about it. You're not going to get your cardiologist or your clinician to ask for it if you go in for a standard clinic visit, but I'm sure that's what Stan Hazen is hoping someday, that this will be that important. So, sorry, that went really fast. So high levels of TMAO would be related to cardiovascular events. And we said, okay, well, the plants don't have them, and the meats do, so let's get people to do each one in a crossover fashion. And let's go out and get Beyond Meat, and we'll get those products, and we will, instead of crappy red meat, let's give it the best shot. Let's go to San Francisco and find a vendor that is serving organic, pasture-raised, regenerative farmed, quality red meat, was our idea. So we got it from a company called Good Eggs. And to cut to the chase here, at the end, we had 3 statistically significant findings. And I did a whole thing on Twitter trying to defend myself. This was done by a third party. We had a data lockdown. We had a pre-existing statistical analysis plan. So all the things I could do to protect myself from accusations of bias, I did. It was still Beyond Meat who funded it. Okay, so you have to decide whether you want to believe me or not. 3 things that were statistically significant all benefited the plant meat over the red meat. They did lower the TMAO. It lowered weight, which was really odd. It didn't lower weight very much, but almost everybody was a couple pounds lighter during the fake meat phase than the regular meat. It really lowered LDL cholesterol by about 10 points, so that was a good clinically significant finding. Nothing was worse. In fact, they really thought that blood pressure would go up because they add sodium to it. Absolutely, the Beyond Meat burgers have more sodium than raw ground beef or beef patties, but people seasoned their patties. And so by the time we compared them, the sodium was identical and the blood pressure was identical, so that didn't get worse. So I actually think at the bottom that's an interesting finding. But the TMAO one is really interesting, and I think it sort of touches on personalized nutrition. So here's the idea. Remember, people did either plant first and animal second, or over here on the right, animal first and plant second. I really don't think this pointer is bright enough to show up. Nope, you can't see that at all, can you? Okay, let me just stand under it, right? So when they did animal first, this TMAO went up and up and up. Interestingly, not in everybody. You see there's like 4 people that really went up in, 2 or 3 people went up in a little, but a bunch of people, it really didn't change. And then they switched to plant meat, and it dropped right away in 2 weeks, and it stayed down. That was what was driving this statistically significant finding. So then, go back over here, and they go from their regular diet to the plant-based meat. And if anything, it goes down a little, not very much. And then they go to the animal, and shouldn't it have gone up? wait a sec, oh no, I'm actually in trouble. When you do a crossover study, one of the things that you're really hoping is that there isn't a difference in the order in which you did it. If there is a difference in the order in which you did it, you're kind of screwed, and you have to go back, and it's not as easy to collapse the data, and you have to look at things a lot of different ways, which we did. It's still statistically significant, but actually what we did, we went back and did some literature search. They found that if they try to look at TMAO in vegans or vegetarians who they give red meat to, and scratch your head for a minute, so you have to be a vegetarian who's willing to eat red meat to be in the study. Okay, so we get vegan and vegetarians who are willing to eat red meat. They found that the TMAO didn't go up. And the hypothesis was they had a different microbial milieu, and so when they now added meat to a vegetarian or a vegan gut, they didn't make TMAO. And we're not sure if this is right, but Justin and Erica Sonnenberg are helping me right now. They have tons of poop in their freezer. No shit, it's just full of... That's what they do. They have poop jokes in their lab all day long, because that's what they do, is they thaw poop and analyze it. And they are going to look to see if they can find these missing bacteria that might explain this. So it's just, for me, a little hint of this idea that personalization is real. That's one of my take-homes from our study. I hope you like that one. So here's the next one that I did with the Sonnenbergs, which is really fun. This one, our acronym is Fee-Fi-Fo. We got this published in Cell, one of the top science journals, just a couple of months ago. So this is pretty much hot off the press, where we gave people a whole lot of fermented food or fiber food. And if you haven't heard these terms, let's bring them up quickly. Prebiotics is the name for foods that have fiber. Fiber is the fuel for the bacteria that are in your gut. The very definition of fiber nutritionally is it's a carbohydrate source that's long strings of bound monosaccharides, and we don't have the enzymes to break them up, and so they're not small enough to be absorbed in your upper small intestine. So by definition, they go to the colon. So prebiotics is just the name of those. Justin actually has a very clever name for them. Instead of calling them prebiotics, he calls them MACs, microbiota accessible carbohydrates, for which he promotes, wait for it, don't gag, a Big Mac diet. He thinks everybody should have a Big Mac. Okay, nobody liked that one. I'm going to tell him nobody liked that one. Okay, prebiotics. And then the other thing is probiotics, which is fermented food. And we found that Americans are willing to eat about 5 things. So yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, or they'll drink kombucha or kefir. There's other things. Anybody ever had natto? Natto's kind of nasty. That's like an acquired taste. We couldn't get them to eat natto. Anyway, these are the 5. We got them to eat 5 things. And here's the way we arranged it. We randomly assigned 18 to eat more fiber and 18 more fermented food. This is all with donor money. So it wasn't a huge study. Very generous donors provided this. And in the beginning, the fiber group was eating about 20 grams a day. The recommendations are for 35 to 40, so they had lots of room for improvement. The group assigned to fermented was hardly eating any fermented food at all. We gave them 4 weeks to try to get up to a higher level. And then we asked them for 6 weeks to maintain a high level. And we just said a lot. This is sort of exploratory here. We weren't sure how much. We got the fiber folks to get, on average, above 40 grams a day from 20. So they doubled their fiber intake. Pretty good. In the fermented food group, we got them to go from 2 servings a day to 5 to 6. Okay, now you might gasp and think that that's not very realistic, except it was only about 300 calories a day. So kimchi and sauerkraut really don't have that many calories. The kombucha and the kefir and the yogurt, sometimes a serving is just half a cup. So it could be I had a cup of yogurt with breakfast, and I had a half a bottle of kombucha with lunch, and I had a serving of kimchi for dinner. I had a cup of kimchi and something else. It added up to 5 or 6 servings pretty quickly, and they maintained it. And then here's just a fun fact. This isn't really part of the science, but at the end, we decided to track them after the study was over, and we were pretty pleased to find that the fiber eaters continued eating more fiber, not as much as we got them to eat in the study, but they continued eating more than at baseline. And the fermented food folks liked it. They were eating like 3 servings a day of fermented food when the study was over. So I actually like this just from a general application point of view, that this is applicable. People can eat more of this and stick with it even when they're not under the fire of being in a study. So I am not accustomed to publishing in Cell and Science and Nature. I usually try to publish in medical journals. Turns out in Cell Science and Nature, I'm stunned how many graphics you can get away with. In my publications, like only 4, Christopher, you can only have four figures. Oh my God, there are 27 figures for this paper, and I just don't have time to run through all 27. So I'm going to jump to the punchline. In the fiber-rich group, they did not change their microbial diversity, which we hoped they would do. We hoped the fiber would fuel the blooming of different microbial species. It didn't. And we were measuring markers of inflammation, thinking that if your microbial health improved, markers of inflammation would go down, immune function would improve. And that didn't happen. In the fermented foods, which Justin admitted later he included just to humor me. He really had done this in mice for a long time. He really was only interested in the fiber. He said, I've been giving mice bacteria, and it never seems to help. In the humans, it did. Consistently across them, they increased their microbial diversity. Now pause for a minute. I'm giving them microbes in the kefir and all the other foods. But what they found was when they characterized them, we actually went out and bought all the different brands that the participants were buying and characterized the bacteria. 95% of the new bacteria that they were finding was not from the foods they were eating. And we have to follow up on this. I don't know the answer to this. But they suspect that once you've changed the microbial milieu down there, there are probably some bacteria that were at a sub-detectable level, and that changing that allowed some of them to bloom. So not sure if we know that answer yet, but it was pretty amazing. And we were measuring a host of 90 different inflammatory markers. None of them went up, and 20 of them went down significantly. So this was fascinating that the fermented food group did well. If anybody saw it about 2 months ago, it was in the New York Times, and they had such a massive response to it. There was another article in the New York Times a week later telling you how to get fermented food. So one was the science, and the next was the public being interested in figuring out how to eat more fermented food. We did look a little deeper. We have this amazing PhD student, Hannah Wastic, who's the lead author on this paper in Cell. If you took the 18 people, and this is really data dredging, sorry, but if you took the 18 people, there were sort of 3 groups, 6, 6, and 6. One who had the highest microbial diversity at baseline, one who had the lowest, and one in the middle. And if you looked, the group with the highest microbial diversity actually decreased their inflammation. And the one with the lowest microbial diversity at the beginning got worse. It actually made their inflammation worse, and inflammatory markers went up. And the interpretation for now, this is pretty exploratory, was that if you have a depleted microbiome and you start throwing tons of fiber down your gut at them, they don't like it. That's too much for them to handle. Whereas if you had a nice, repleted, very diverse microbiome and you got lots of fiber, you did good things with it. So our next study is actually going on in pregnant women. It's about to start next week. You're going to get 130 pregnant women. Some of them get fiber, some of them get fermented food. Some of them get fermented first and fiber later. And so we're thinking if we give them the fermented food first and increase their microbial diversity, they might do a better job handling the more fiber that they get later. Because one of you alums was pregnant and did well in the market and donated the money for the pregnant women. So I don't think you're out there today. I don't see you. Anyway, yeah, she actually was one of my advisees in HomeBio. Is that hilarious? She came back, very, very smart woman and really interested in this whole field, and asked us if we would focus on pregnant women and the infants to see how much of the microbiome gets transmitted to the infant will be the main hypothesis there. Okay, so I'm doing this with Zoe, this kind of thing. Let me check my time. Okay, I'm doing pretty good. They started with 1,000 twins in the UK, and then they approached me and Harvard University, and we got 1,000 people in the US and did a study all by mail to see if doing this whole study by mail would work. And now we're getting 10,000 people in the UK and the US to try to do this by mail. We mail you muffins, and you finger stick yourself, and you get a dried blood spot, and you send us poop samples, et cetera. It's a really fascinating group. I'm having a blast working with them. Last year, they got 2 wonderful Nature Medicine papers out from this group. If you really squint, my name is in there in the co-authors somewhere, but there's like a bazillion people in here. So this is a really fascinating group. I don't know if it's always going to work in the long run, but I'm engaged. I'm trying to engage in this and figure this out. And the last study that I'm going to share with you doesn't have a great acronym. It's just Mediterranean diet versus a keto diet. And so I want to bring up Mediterranean because that was in my title, and I don't want you to feel like you were gypped. I said personalized nutrition, microbiome, Mediterranean, and more. Okay, so I'm pretty frustrated with the ketogenic diet, especially the way some people interpret it, and I don't think they interpret it very well. But we decided we would do the best keto diet and pit it against the best Mediterranean diet with this underlying idea that you could, if you did the best med and the best keto, say 3 things in common. And that would be eat a lot of vegetables, and that would be don't eat any added sugar or refined grain. Now, technically, when they score the Mediterranean diet, there are these Mediterranean diet scores. They don't technically say eat low added sugar and refined grain, but it's certainly implied. What they do say in the Mediterranean diet is to eat lots of beans or legumes, lots of fruits, and lots of whole grains. And those are 3 things you can't do on a keto diet. So if this makes sense, we said 3 things are the same and 3 things are different, right? That was the way this is set up. So I totally buy the fewer refined grains and added sugar. I'm a little concerned people getting rid of fruits and beans and whole grains. So I'm going to share this data with you, which I think this is a really beautiful portrayal of national data. These are trends since the year 2000, roughly. This is how much protein, carbs, and fats have changed over time. And it's a little bizarre that they're statistically significant. That's only because there's like a bazillion people in the study. Doesn't it look like they're pretty similar? Like carbs are down a little, and protein's up a little bit. It's pretty similar. In the US, we eat more carbs than the other 2, and we eat more fats than protein. But the better graph was this one, when they broke it into types of carbs, fats, and protein. So I hope you'll appreciate this. High and low quality carbs, animal and plant protein, and 3 kinds of fat. And except for one outlier here, almost everything is about in the 10% of your calorie range. 10% of high quality carbs, 10% animal protein, maybe 5% plant, about 10% of saturated and mono and polyunsaturated fat. So the elephant in the room is the damn low quality carbohydrates. More than 40% of calories are coming from things filled with refined grain and added sugars. As a public health professional, this is my emphasis. Get rid of those. They don't fill you up. They're not satiating. They don't come with other nutrients. Come on, people. And if you did that, if you got rid of most of the 40%, I'm not sure what would be best. I think some of you could eat more fat if it was good quality fat, and some of you could eat more carbs if it was good quality carbs, and you could do mixtures of both. It's actually hard to eat more protein. I don't know if you want to get into that later. Most people find it hard to get above 20% protein, so I think it would be a combination of good carbs and good fats. But I see no reason not to get rid of all those. So then my question is, hey, America, wake up. Get rid of those. That is what keto is saying. But really, if you did a good job getting rid of those, would you benefit even more from also getting rid of beans, fruits, and whole grains? That's the way the study was set up, okay? So it's a crossover study. You do both. People with diabetes or prediabetes, we scheduled this so it's 12 weeks on each diet. For the first 4 weeks, we mail you the food in jars with a company called Methodology. And for the last 8 weeks of your 12, you've learned how to do it. You've seen it in the jars. And so now we're going to ask you to do it on your own. At the very end, we're going to leave you alone for 12 weeks. You have diabetes or prediabetes. You saw what was going on. You tried the different food. What are you now eating now that the study is over? That's what I want to share with you here. So a fabulous postdoc named Matt Landry came up with these great adherence scores. We have lots of diet data from these people. This is everybody in this study getting a ketogenic score and a Mediterranean score. We're going to call it the Mediterranean plus diet because it's got the low added sugar and low refined grain. And the keto diet we're calling the well-formulated ketogenic diet, after a book by Jeff Volek and Steve Finney. So look how variable they are, even when we're mailing them the food. We delivered the food to them, and there's still a lot of variability. So baseline scores, and then the second one is food delivery. The third one is self-provided, and the fourth one is follow-up. So the nice sort of internal validity point here is, according to our scores, whether we mailed them the food or they did it on their own, the scores are pretty equal in quality between the two diets. That's good for me, for internal validity, for my science, okay? This part is fascinating, though. Look at the range of variability differs. Now, this is a little worrisome. By the time they get to providing their own food, some of the people could not do the keto diet, but some people rocked it. Some people were up at 10 when they were providing their own food. I don't have anybody in the Mediterranean group at 10. I got them up at 7 and 8, but I don't have 10s. Okay, I don't have time to follow up on this, but this is the kind of thing you might want to ask me questions about later. Okay, does that make sense? Anyway, here's another way to present the adherence to the diet. So at baseline, they had not been assigned to either diet, but we scored them of how keto and how Mediterranean their diets were. So these bars to the left is how keto they were, and to the right is how Mediterranean they were. So just at baseline, without even trying, they were more Mediterranean than keto, and that makes sense, because keto involves getting rid of a lot of food staples. So here's how they did when we delivered it to them. They weren't perfect, but pretty good. Again, left is on keto, right is on med, on a score from 0 to 10. You can see how some people did great on both. Some people did better on one than the other. That's life. Wanted to present this. When they were providing it on their own, they weren't as good as when we delivered it. That makes sense. But I need to know that. I need to know if these diets can be followed by people on their own when they're done. And then after this study was all over, they weren't assigned to either diet. We looked 12 weeks later, and that's what they looked like according to the scores that we had developed. They were more Mediterranean than keto after having done them both. Does that make sense? All of these points are relevant to me, and you might want to ask questions later. This is a really funny point that I'd like to make for just a minute. So we asked them at the end what they preferred. Which one was more affordable? Which one is easier to follow? How about when we were providing, when they were providing it on their own, which did they like better? And when we delivered it, which one did they like better? And we weren't actually seeing much of a difference until somebody said, why don't we split the data and look at it separately by which one they got first instead of just everybody? And so these are data presenting it on their opinion when they got it first. If they got keto first, they're in blue. And if they got Mediterranean first, it's in yellow. Can anybody see what the punchline here is? You liked whichever diet you got first. That was pretty eye-opening for me. I thought, nobody's going to like the ketogenic diet. They're all going to like the Mediterranean diet. Even though I made it the best keto I could, I made it the well-formulated ketogenic diet. No, a bunch of them liked keto better. Okay, but I think this is part of the answer right here, is they lost a lot of weight on the first diet, whichever one was first. And then they plateaued by the time they got to the second diet. So I may be over-interpreting here, but I'm thinking, they said, wow, on that first diet, I lost a ton of weight, and on the second diet, I didn't. I sure like that first diet better. Makes sense to me. Okay, I don't want to over-interpret here, but I think it's pretty impressive how they not only maintained the weight loss in the second phase, but 12 weeks after the study was over, they'd maintained the weight loss pretty well. So we had some pretty happy campers in the study, if that makes sense. So here we go. We got glycosylated hemoglobin on the left was the main outcome. It wasn't different between the two groups. In absolute terms, it was a little lower on keto than it was on med. There's another. We had them wearing continuous glucose monitors, if any of you have seen those. They actually did better on the ketogenic diet on that outcome. It wasn't the primary outcome. Both groups lowered their glucose. Both groups lowered their insulin, not significantly different. On the keto diet, their LDL cholesterol got worse, which happens with higher saturated fat. Both groups raised their HDL cholesterol. That's good. The keto diet, both diets lowered triglycerides, but the keto diet was better. And their liver enzymes went down on both, not different. That was good. And they both lost a bunch of weight. It's almost statistically significant favoring keto, but if you can see the absolute numbers, they're very similar. Okay, so basically this says the main outcome was not different, but keto did better for triglycerides, and Mediterranean did better for LDL cholesterol. Kind of a wash there. We concluded, and I'm not going to show you the rest of the data, so we looked kind of at all the nutrients they were eating, and on the keto diet, they were lower in many of the nutrients than on the med diet. So when you're that restrictive in your eating, you're lower in nutrients. We said, okay, there were some measures of improvement for both diets. Keto is better for glucose control in general and lower triglycerides, but it raised LDL, decreased fiber, nutrient intake, and it wasn't as sustainable, so maybe those benefits wouldn't be sustained over time. So we don't think the added benefits of the keto diet would outweigh the benefits from eating more legumes, fruits, and whole grains. To be continued. This paper's under review right now. Don't tell anybody. I wasn't supposed to show you this. Okay, it's under review right now. But that's what's coming. Okay, and then to set you up for some questions, those are the kinds of studies I do. I would love to see if those generated any questions, but I want to leave you with an idea about a foundational diet. And so my idea about the foundational diet is that everybody agrees on these things in my community right here. Even the keto folks and even the low-fat vegan folks agree on this. And this is a huge deal. Not many Americans do this. Why shouldn't we all get together and focus on changing this? And then if you go to the next rim, most of my colleagues, the vast majority, agree all these things are good for you. Okay, the beans have lectins, the fruits have sugars, the nuts have fats, the eggs have cholesterol, the fish have a face. Get over it. All of those things provide good nutrients, and they're good whole foods, okay? So all those are pretty agreed upon. By the time you get to grains and poultry, if you're really specific about what you're talking about, you'll get a lot of agreement. So if we're talking steel-cut oats for whole grains, that's way better than a donut. And if you're talking about pasture-raised poultry as opposed to concentrated animal feeding operations, you get more agreement there. If you get to dairy and red meat, gets a little dicier, but still, yogurt is a far cry from Go-Gurt, right? And regenerative farmed red meat is better than processed meat and hot dogs. So I'm a little frustrated that our message about nutrition gets confused in the media to suggest that, oh, God, they argue about everything. We don't. We have 100% agreement on this. And all of this is a problem. Americans eat too much refined grain, too much added sugar, and not enough vegetables. And we all agree. We should work on that. We should work with chefs in the dining hall at Stanford and make unapologetically delicious food full of vegetables. And we are. We have a cool paper on that if you want to ask me. Okay. And then there's considerable agreement beyond that, even if you move away from the 100% agreement. Okay, so at the end of the day, I'm pushing for a foundational diet. There's tons of room to move on that. When you get it, if you're already there, I'll bet you a bunch of you are already there doing that foundational diet. I think there is room for personalization, but the science isn't quite there yet, so I'm not sure you should send in your poop and do your blood sample yet. So we're getting there, but we're not quite there. Are you interested in macronutrients or diet patterns or specific food groups? Or this is probably never going to happen, different kind of berries or different kinds of nuts. But maybe. Thank you very much.